YouTube is on, and I'm going live on Facebook. Tell you when. But not yet. I gotta get us live first. Okay, and it looks like we're live on Facebook now. Whoop.
There we go.
Sorry, go ahead.
All right. Well, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's great to see you guys. I love Shabbat. I love to see you guys all the time. And I know a lot of you are very interested in Hebrew. Some are taking Hebrew. Some are not yet taking Hebrew. But I think even if you're not taking it, you're really interested in it. And I thought today we'll actually try some to look a little deeper. Right? The last couple of weeks we've been doing like a broad brush. We're going because our readings. You know, there's a chapter a day for the read, a chapter a day for the Haftarah, a chapter a day, right? In the writings and in the Torah. That's just a lot to cover. We kind of want to give you a feel for what it is that we're reading. Get a feel for the reading cycle, the one-year reading cycle. But when you're thinking about going deeper into your studies, I want you to start getting more of a feel for that as well, and to really grasp it. So here we go. We're going to start in a very strange place. We're going to start at the very beginning. Bereshit, the first book of the Bible, Bereshit, or Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1. And my title is The Beginning. And this is the verse. This is the verse. Bereshit 1:1. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Say with me, Bereshit.
Bereshit.
Bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. All right. Good job. Okay, so we're going to go through this one word at a time. Are you ready? Bereshit. Bereshit.
Bereshit.
The Holy Bible, the scriptures, they start with a preposition. A preposition. Those are words that give us the setting in time or space. Okay? Give me some examples of prepositions. Prepositions. Words that give us a setting.
On, at, under, over,
Under, around. Yeah. Right. Those are all prepositions. Yeah. Now, when you're making a sentence, you usually don't begin a sentence. I mean, occasionally you do if it's very important, but usually you don't start a sentence with a preposition, let alone the Holy Scriptures. You think you're going to start with a preposition, but it's important, apparently, to start with this preposition. It's important information. The but prefix. It can mean several things, depending on context, including in, or on, or with, or even at, when it comes to time. Okay, so keep that in mind. That prefix is attached to a noun that completes the prepositional phrase, this introductory phrase to the scriptures. Bereshit. Bereshit has multiple meanings. It can mean beginning, or starting point, or first, or best. It can even mean first. In some scriptures, it even refers to first fruits. Bereshit. Now, the difference between a book, like any old book, and the book, like a very specific book, is the use of what's called the definite article. In English, the definite article is the word the, as opposed to the indefinite article, which is a or an. Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
In Hebrew, there is no indefinite article, but there is a definite article, which we should translate into English as the, and that's the letter He, used as a prefix. However, when there's already a prefix there in front of a word, like this bait in ba, the He, it melds in with the other prefix, and the pointer changes to let us know that this has happened. Instead of ba, it would be ba. Instead of ba, it would be like Bareshit. Are you with me? But the pointers here say Bareshit. Hebrew students notice the pointer in this word under the bait. Tell me if there's a definite article in this word. You see a definite article the way that this is printed.
The vocal shabbat. The vocal shabbat.
You see a definite article there.
Oh, you cheat?
The definite article would be, okay, I got one no. Raise your hand if you see a definite article. No one. Raise your hand if you know there is no definite article. Okay.
I don't know.
There's a few guesses for a no here. All right. So what I've been saying is, right here, that little pointer right there is shva.
Oh.
When you put a prefix in front of the Hebrew word, it's usually going to have a shva. It's going to be ba, right? Or la, or ka. And that means like or to or for or in See, indefinite article, in But if there was a definite article, hey, that merged with it, then this shva would have changed to a patah or a kamatz, sometimes the goal, but usually a patah or kamatz, and it would be bareshit. But when the Masoretic translators developed their pointer system, they chose bareshit. So that means there's no definite article here. What am I saying? If you're going to translate this, by the way those pointers are, there's no the. There's no the. Okay? However, remember that the only way you would see the definite article is by the pointer, and like I just said, it's called the Nikud pointer system. Was not created until at the very earliest AD 500 by Masoretic scholars in Tiberia or Tiberias on the shores of Lake Kinneret. That's the Sea of Galilee. Most say after 700, from 700 AD to 1000 AD, the pointer system was developed. So what does that tell us? The pointers are not really part of the Torah. I had someone was arguing me something about the name of God and saying, well, the Torah code shows the pointers this way, so that must be how the Torah was not written with pointers. None were there. And so the letters would have been exactly the same for in the beginning. How can we know which one it is? How can we know which one it is? So we're going to go into that. When we have trouble with something like this, context is king. Say it with me. Context is king. Good. All right. So before you set your translation in stone, you should look at the rest of the verse and maybe even the chapter for context. Normally, a prepositional phrase would come at the end of a sentence, not the beginning. When it does come first, it's for a reason. And what is that reason again?
Context is key. Context is key.
The reason to move words out of their normal order is to give them emphasis. To give them emphasis. Okay? There's a normal word order in Hebrew, and if you see something break from the normal word order and be thrust to the front of the sentence, and it can happen, it happens in Greek as well, it means the author is giving emphasis to that. You with me? Mm-hmm. So what does it tell us here? Why is this prepositional phrase in the beginning or at first, or I gave you the different options here. There are a number of different combinations you can come up with, right? Why would it be thrust to the front? Because he's emphasizing the whole point of this narrative is to tell us this is the beginning. This is the very beginning. It's important that you get that. Are you with me? It was important for the author to get that across. All right? Now, before we go any further with a direct translation, most of us probably know this account pretty well, right? Genesis 1. Who hasn't read Genesis 1, right? Okay. So now some suggest that there was a universe created that existed long before this account, and that this was just a beginning. Are you with me? Do you see how it starts to make a difference, right? Some say there was a beginning long before this. Now consider that the only variance, first I'm going to tell you, the only variance, and when I say the word variant, I mean the only ancient manuscripts which deviate in any way from what we see up here are from Origen, a church father in AD, who was a heretic, by the way, and the Samaritans. The Samaritans, okay? You're with me? Origen's difference. Origen, using the Greek, wrote that it could be pronounced Bereshit or Bereshit. Okay, Bereshit or Bereshit. You notice the difference, Ba or Be at the beginning. Isn't that interesting? He saw it could be in a beginning or it could be in the beginning. That's the difference between his two options, a transliteration of the schwa or an a vowel that would indicate a definite article. The Samaritans wrote Barasit in Aramaic, okay? Not Boresit. Again, indicating the use of a definite article. So you can see the differences we do have. They seem to be indicating a definite article. So the language could go either way, but let's stop and think about what happens in the rest of this chapter. Because that's the context. What happens in the rest of this chapter? Look at the rest of the chapter and tell me, according to the text, tell me this. What exists before this verse?
Nothing. God, the Lord.
Very nice. Do birds exist before this verse?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No. Do stars?
No.
Earth?
No.
Atmosphere?
No.
Animals?
No.
Man. Does man exist before this?
No.
What about the moon?
No.
The sun?
No.
The hosts of heaven, the malachim, the hosts of heaven? No. None of that stuff exists. What exactly did exist then? If this was a creation, not the creation, if this was a beginning and not the beginning, well, what was before it? Well, I heard someone say, God, Elohim. If anything existed at all, God, right? What about wisdom?
Yes.
Right, there's a scripture we read. What about Mashiach?
Yes.
Who created all things? Because Elohim is a uni-plural word. Really, Mashiach is in there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And wisdom. If you want, you can flip to Proverbs 8, 22 to 31. I think I wrote it up there for you. No, I didn't. I didn't put it up there for you. That's very mean. I'm sorry. Proverbs 8, 22 to 31. Proverbs 8, 22 to 31. You ready? I'm gonna read it for you, and you tell me who this is. All right? Adonai made me as the beginning of his way, the first of his ancient works. I was appointed before the world, before the start, before the earth's beginnings. When I was brought forth, there were no ocean depths, no springs brimming with water. I was brought forth before the hills, before the mountains had settled in place. He had not yet made the earth, the fields, or even the earth's first grains of dust. When he established the heavens, I was there. When he drew the horizon's circle on the deep, when he set the skies above in place, when the fountains of the deep poured forth, when he prescribed boundaries for the sea, so that its water could not transgress his command. When he marked out the foundations of the earth, I was with him as someone he could trust. For me, every day was pure delight as I played in his presence all the time, playing everywhere on his earth and delighting to be with humankind. Is that, raise your hand if you agree with this one, is that wisdom personified?
Yes.
It's from Proverbs. It's talking about, the context is wisdom. It could be wisdom personified. I have another question for you. Is that Mashiach?
Yes.
I have hands going up for that too. Is Mashiach wisdom personified?
Yes.
Maybe so, yeah. In any case, it is said that if you have no problem believing this chapter, then believing the rest of Scripture will also be no problem for you. If you can believe the miracles of creation, then none of the other miracles will cause any stumbling block for you. Are you with me? Does that make sense?
Yep.
I mean, what's more difficult than this? Creating everything, speaking it all into existence. What's more difficult? All right. So let's find out a little bit more about this. What exactly is so difficult? In Hebrews 11:3, you see it put Hebrews 11:3, or prosophoreos in the Greek, Hebrews 11:3. The first inductees, we've talked about this before, the first inductees to the what's called the Hall of Faith, quite often, right? Commonly called the Hall of Faith. Who were the first inductees to the Hall of Faith? Do you remember?
Abraham.
Noah.
I got an Abraham over here. I got a Noah over here. Anyone else?
Abel.
Abel. I got an Abel over here. Let me read it for you. You ready? Hebrews 11:3, verse 3. Hebrews 11, verse 3. By emunah, by trusting faithfulness, by faith, we understand that the universe was created through a spoken word of God, so that what is seen did not come into being out of existing phenomena. Now, this is what we were talking about. Is it important if it's in the beginning or in a beginning? Hebrews is bringing this out with it did not come into being out of existing phenomena. That's Greek theology. The Greeks said there was always a universe, and the gods kind of formed what we see in the earth. Are you with me? That's not the same as this text, which is telling us God spoke everything into existence. And the ones who are in the Hall of Faith here, the first ones listed, are you, if you believe this. By emunah, this is the formula throughout this chapter. By emunah, by faith, by trusting, we understand that the universe was created through a spoken word of God. Are you with me? The writer of Hebrews is saying that the universe came into existence from nothing. Is that what the Genesis text really says? Let's look at the next word and see. Say with me, bara.
Bara.
This is a verb meaning create. Okay? But it is said that this verb is only used to describe things created by Adonai from nothing. Are you with me? It's in what's called the kal stem. So if you say kal, it's a kal stem, signifying some sort of simple action. For instance, a verb in the kal would mean break instead of smash or shatter. It's just simple action. And it's not an overly dramatized word. It's in the perfect conjunction. That means that in this case, it's denoting what we would call past tense in English. So, what's the past tense for create? I put you to sleep, I'm sorry. What's the past tense for create?
Created.
Created, yes, created. But it's also in the third person. Sometimes in a Hebrew sentence, there's no subject given. And if there's no subject given, then the verb tells us what person it's in. Like first person would be I or we if it's plural. You know, it'd be you in English, right? If it's second person. If it's third person, it'd be he, she, or it. Again, context would be king. So if there was no subject here, this would be saying he created. Because it's third person and it also happens to be masculine. Are you with me? Now this is inspired by the Ruach HaKodesh. But the Spirit is not writing it. This is from the first 5 books of the Bible, which were written or compiled. Bereshit was more or less compiled by Moshe from earlier writings, we believe, because there are actually some first-hand writings, first-person writings in Bereshit. You see Yosef, the guy with the multicolor whatever, right, goes into writing. You see the text saying, I, yada, yada, yada. First person quotes. And first person narration as well. First person narration, I told Pharaoh, and then the quote is there. It's not some omniscient narrator, Yosef is writing it. You with me? So these are when Moshe wrote it, it's compiling it for a sheet. This is probably the first thing that was ever written. It was probably written by Adam. The copy we have comes to us from a newer version of Hebrew, but nevertheless, this is probably the first person thing ever written. All right, it was inspired. In other words, this is not Adonai telling us what he did. That would be first person. It's not Moshe telling Adonai what he did. That would be second person. You created. Rather, it's Moshe telling the readers what he did. By the way, I can say that it is telling us what he did because the verb is in the masculine again. That does not mean that Adonai is a man. Are you with me? When you see a picture of an old man sitting on a throne representing God, that's something we're commanded not to do, first of all, right? And it's not accurate. God is not a man. He's not a woman. He's not a man. It doesn't mean he's some other gender either, by the way. I have to say that these days, right? But what it does, okay, it does indicate, as written under the inspiration of the Ruach HaKodesh, it tells us he, God, wishes to be identified more with masculine traits in this text. What does that tell us? What does that tell us? Now, all traits, think about it now, all traits can apply to all people more or less on a sliding scale. Okay? Really, you have all traits just on a sliding scale. But some have been known or understood more through the majority of history and in the majority of cultures to be more masculine traits, and some more feminine traits. Are you with me? So what traits might he, God, be wanting to illustrate here in this verse? Power?
Love.
Love? That's interesting. Maybe so. Strength. What is he doing in this verse? I think power was very good. I think all of them were good. He's creating, right?
Yes.
If you make something, you go out into your garage and you have maybe you're into ceramics, or maybe you do woodworking or something, or maybe you just knit, or you right? And you make something. There's no one else around. You didn't pay somebody for the material. You made the material or whatever. Okay, there's no one else involved here. It's just you, and you're making something in your garage, in your basement. Who does that thing belong to? You. Who owns it? Yeah. Who makes the rules regarding that thing? You might say, who rules that thing? Are you with me? Who has authority over that thing? Are those masculine traits over the majority of history, and then obviously there are exceptions. Sliding scale. What sort of traits are we seeing here with rulership and power and sovereignty, these sort of, right? Do you see what I'm saying? What is he doing? He's the creator. The creator of anything is generally the rightful owner of that thing, at least up until such time that they may be selling the thing. They are the ruler over the thing. He is the ruler, the king of the universe. Humanism says man is his own God. Man is his own king. But Genesis tells us something very different. As the prophet said, he is the potter, and we are just clay. Isaiah 64:8. Okay, so back to our translation. So far we have in, and we could put in parentheses, the beginning, because there was nothing before that. In the beginning, he created. Well, who is he? In English, the sentence structure is subject, then verb, then object. For example, Joe threw the ball. Joe is the subject, threw is the verb, ball is the object. But in Hebrew, the word order is verb, in biblical Hebrew, verb, subject, object. Okay? Literally, threw the ball, Joe. Threw Joe the ball. Threw Joe the ball. So we would expect to see the subject next. And that's what we should do. So we should expect the next word to be the one doing the creating. The subject is the one that's doing the verb. That's what subject is, right? Okay, so who is it? Elohim. Elohim. Now this is a masculine plural noun. Did you hear what I said? It's a masculine plural noun. Usually translated as either capital G-O-D, God, or small g, O-D-S, gods. If you're talking about the Elohim Mitzrayim, the gods of Egypt, you would be using the same word. But you would be using it in a plural. So why don't you use a plural here, I wonder, right? That's what you're probably wondering. Okay. Maybe you're not thinking much of it all. You're just, I don't know. But I can tell you that in Hebrew, the verb must match the subject in number and gender. Sometimes we see that in English, right? If you're talking about a group of people, right? You don't see with the verb, but you see with pronouns. You don't say, the San Antonio Spurs went on a trip. He went to, no, you say they went to Minneapolis or something. You with me? It has to match. The same in Hebrew, the verb has to match. It has to be either plural or singular, just like the noun. Okay? So that's the rule. But remember that verb, let me go back, is what? Singular. It's singular. But Elohim, the noun, is plural. You won't find this with other words in Hebrew except one, Adonai. The grammar is askew somehow for some reason. Somehow the creator is both singular, as illustrated by the verb, and also plural, as shown by the noun. This is a great mystery, which has sparked much debate and produced several theological excuses, which fall apart under scrutiny. Elohim is the creator. Only he can bara. Remember that? Only Adonai can bara. Create from nothing. None of the malachim, none of the angels have the power to create from nothing. This is a commonly known thing in Judaism. Only Elohim can do this. All right? So, because there's an excuse that it's the angelic court that created. Well, it doesn't fit. Not even in Judaism, it doesn't fit. Not a good excuse. Moreover, there's another excuse that's kingly speech, where a king goes around, I think, and some of us use it sometimes, right? I think we shall retire to the boudoir, right? Tired and going to the bedroom. I think we shall have pizza tonight, and you're all alone, right? It doesn't, using the, I think Seinfeld, someone did it one episode for themselves, right? It's kingly speech, royal speech, where kings speak about themselves in a plural. Oh, he was doing third person in Seinfeld, where they speak about themselves in a plural. That came from other cultures. You don't see it in the Tanakh until, I think it shows up in Chronicles, somewhere late in Chronicles, if I remember right, and after much interaction with surrounding pagan nations. You understand that thoughts, and you get loan words from language to language. Everyone in this room knows what adios means, for example, right? Some of the foods we eat have foreign names, for example. We get loan words from different languages. We get different ideas come into, especially in the United States, right? The melting pot idea and everything, right? Different ideas come in. So we have this interaction. And after many years of interaction, we finally see way out at near the end of Chronicles a little bit of kingly speech, very little. But let me throw this at you. It's interesting to contemplate how even that kingly speech came about. What are kings? You remember we talked about the beginning before about idolatry. We were talking about idolatry. We were talking about how we are made in God's image, and that we are put here as stewards of the earth to like rule over the earth, not in like a exploit the earth kind of way, but we're supposed to protect and keep, meaning guard the earth, right? And keep the earth, tend the garden, sort of idea, right? We are, as stewards, representatives of Elohim, ruling in his place. Kings in the ancient world, remember, used to build idols. So anywhere you were in their realm, you could see who owns this area. Who is the ruler in this area? You could see who it was by these idols. We were made in God's image as his stewards. Right? So kings are earthly representatives of Elohim. We see that in the Brit Hadashah. No power has come to be, right? No authority or rulership has come to be without his putting them in place. We see this principle. So why then would these kings who are representatives of Elohim speak about themselves in the plural? There's no AC, so these people are tired and hot. But do you see? Why would the king speak about themselves in the plural? Think about that, right? Because Elohim is a uni-plurality, and they are representatives of a uni-plurality. That doesn't destroy the idea. That bolsters the idea. Are you with me?
Yes.
So now we have, in the beginning, Elohim created from nothing. So what did he create? Et. Et. Right? So what is et? Hebrew student, tell me what et is. You can actually read it. Definite direct object marker. It's untranslatable. You don't translate this word. You don't translate it. There's nothing, it means nothing in English. It's a grammatical marker, and it's telling you, hey, the thing that comes after me is a definite direct object in this sentence. Are you with me? This is useful because if this first sentence was somewhere else, I mean, because here it would make no sense. It would say, you could say, in the beginning, he created Elohim. And then you'd be like, well, who's he? Right? Who's he? But we know Elohim is the subject because the object comes after the eight. Are you with me? Remember, we have a subject, a verb, and an object. All right. This is what we call the definite direct object marker. It's untranslatable. Just a grammatical marker showing us that the words which follow are the direct object of the sentence, not the subject. For example, the ball is the object of the sentence, I threw the ball. In this case, the object is what was created up here. Without this marker, like I said, we would be confused about, we might think that Elohim was created, for example. Well, looking at the rules for Hebrew grammar that we see, that we know, and the DDOM, we know this is not the case. We know, there's no question, this is not the case. Rather, Elohim is the creator. Now, so sometimes things you could get confused in English or in other languages, you cannot get confused in Hebrew. You with me? So what did he create? Hashamayim. Hashamayim. The first part is ha. What is ha? The is the definite article. In English, the definite article is the. And here it's a hey with a patach. That's the most common form. It's attached to the word, to a noun. Shamayim. Shamayim meaning heavens or skies. Notice this word is always in the masculine plural. It's always plural. In English, we have a singular sky or a singular outer space, right? But in biblical Hebrew, we have the plural shamayim, the heavens or the skies. I know initially, sometimes when I say parts of this, you're like, so we'll get there, trust me. This word may have originally been understood as a compound of two words. Say with me, sham.
Sham.
And mayim.
Mayim.
So who can tell me what sham means? Sham. Epo yesh shulchan. Sham yesh shulchan. There. Sham is there. And mayim. Who can tell me what mayim means?
Water.
Water. So, and there's no, remember that there is no present tense to be verb in Hebrew. So we have there is water. There is water. Or, except that it's always what? Plural. Mayim is always plural. So really we have there are waters. There are waters. Why would you be give a name to the sky or to the skies or to the heavens? Shabbat shalom. That means there are waters. Let me ask you this way. Are there waters in our atmosphere?
Yes.
Yeah, there are. As a matter of fact, does the Bible tell us there are waters in our atmosphere? Maybe even in this chapter a little farther down, right? Bereshit 1:7. Bereshit 1:7, where Elohim separates the waters below from the waters above. And you can look up in the sky and you can see clouds, and you know what? You could say, there are waters. There are waters. Okay, this word refers to space, including outer space and inner space, or atmospheric space. Then we have a pause. So I can say, do you find this incredibly interesting or totally boring? Okay, so next we have va'et. Remember 8? We had 8 already? Now we have va'et. Okay, so 8 was the definite direct object marker. So we know we're going to have another direct object. It's not a subject, it's not something that was also creating, but it's something that was created. And we have a va in front, the vav prefix. In Paleo Hebrew, the vav prefix was a wow, a W sound. But now it's a V sound. It's not evil or something. The difference when Moses walked the earth, language changes over time. When Moses walked the earth, it was a W sound. When Yeshua walked the earth, it was a V sound. He didn't, and you don't see him going around preaching and saying, you guys aren't saying it right. You're all going to hell because you can't say the name right. It should be a W sound. You don't see that. Are you with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. It would be recorded if that was something that was important at the time, and it was prevalent. That's how people spoke then. Then he would have addressed it, but he didn't. Do you believe that? Do you believe it was important to our salvation? He would have brought it up. Okay, good. So we have an et again is preceded by the prefix vav. So the prefix vav, can have several meanings also, including but or with, and most commonly though, and it's attached to as a prefix to the DDUM, so we know here we can just say and. To show the difference between a direct object and an indirect object, by the way, we'll look at the sentence, I threw the ball through the window. I would be the subject doing the action. Through would be the verb, the action. The is a definite article. It's a specific ball, not just any ball. Ball is the direct object, the thing being acted upon by the verb. Through would be another one of those prepositions we talked about, helping us see the setting. The would be another definite article. It's a particular window, not just any window that the ball is going to go through. And window is the indirect object, not the one receiving the direct action of the verb. Everybody with me? That was kind of quick. Mostly, well, not everybody. Okay, so was it a question or?
No, I'm just saying I'm awake.
Okay, so one more time. I, in that sentence, is the subject. That means the subject means the one doing the action. You see, I threw the ball, I'm the one doing the action. Through would be the verb. That is the action itself. The verb is the action. The is a definite article. It's not just any ball. It's a specific ball. Ball is the direct object. That's the thing being thrown. The thing that's getting the action of the verb. Thing that the subject is acting on. And through is a preposition helping us see the setting. I threw the ball, what? Where? Through something. Through, preposition. Through the, definite article. Not just any window, I threw through the window, that window. Window is the indirect object. I didn't throw the window. I threw the ball through the window. Okay. So what is the other direct object other than the heavens? Haaretz. Haaretz. Now, here we see another definite article. It's in the second most usual form, the hey with a kamatz instead of a patah, but it still means the same thing, the. This time it's attached to eretz. Now, eretz usually is a double segolit, has two segols. A segol is this little pointer right here under the resh. There's usually one of those here. If there's no ha in front, it would be eretz. But it becomes aretz, haaretz, when there's the prefix added. You don't need to necessarily memorize all of that or something, but I'm just telling you so you know. So so if you were worried, if you were concerned because you saw eretz means land, this is haaretz. Does that mean something different? Is there some different? No, it's just that the pointers change a little when a prefix is added. It still means the same thing. And what does eretz mean? It can mean several things. Again, what is king?
Context.
Context. Okay, so could be ground, could be piece of land, like dirt, could be earth, like earthy stuff, or like the earth, or could be territory. How do you know which one to use? Context. Context. Elohim created the heavens and the earth from nothing. And he did it in the very beginning. Are you with me? What does it mean that he created the heavens since there weren't any stars yet?
He created it out of nothing.
He created everything out of nothing. What did he actually create here because there are no stars? When it says he created the heavens, what is it saying he created?
He talked. Speak, and he created.
Okay, he spoke and he created. But if there are no stars, if he created the heavens and there are no stars, what else is in the heavens besides the stars?
Nothing. Space.
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 Space. Okay, that's good. What's the next question here? What does it imply if there was nothing before the beginning? We said it's the beginning because there's nothing there. We talked about there's nothing there before it. So it's the beginning. So if there's nothing there before it, what did God just create? What else did God just create?
Everything. Space.
Time. Time. This is at the beginning. There's nothing before that. Now we have space and we have time. Since dry land had not appeared yet, there were no territories, no nations or anything like that. Stars had not been formed. What does it mean that Elohim created the eras? We have time, we have space, and we have matter. Matter. We have all the things that we need. Well, he had all the things he needs. I couldn't do it. To make everything in the universe. The initial thing he did was create them. And he did it through a spoken word. These are the building blocks for the universe. Time, space, and matter. The earliest Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures that we know of is commonly called the Septuagint, or the LXX, the 70, because of those Roman numerals signifying the English 70. And it said that 70 Hebrew scholars, actually there were 72, were employed by the Ptolemaic ruler in the area south of Israel. It's the Egyptian area. The Ptolemies, he was one of Alexander's generals. When Alexander died, they split the empire, right? And the Ptolemies ruled in Egypt. He wanted to build up his library, famous library in Alexandria, Egypt. And so he hired these scholars to make a translation of the Holy Scriptures to keep in that library. Josephus, the Jewish historian, wrote about it. He noted that this translation was accomplished with the best available text. That was a little too close to the mic, I think. The best available text. Did you get that part? So this is notable because in the Dead Sea Scrolls, multiple family groups of the Hebrew text were found, with the two most common matching either the Masoretic text, which is what we use mostly today for the Hebrew, and what you see in most translations, or another Hebrew text that matches, a family text that matches the Septuagint. And it's often said that the early Talmudim of Yeshua, the early followers of Yeshua, were quoting from the Septuagint. But might I suggest they were quoting from the best available Hebrew texts, which happen to match the Septuagint very closely. Does that make sense? Rather than the Masoretic family group text. In any case, I thought we might compare the Greek text quickly to see how close the translation would be in this first verse of the Bible. So let's take this in small chunks. This is the Septuagint. En arche epoiesen hatheas tan uranon kai tein ge. Okay, everyone, now you say it.
One word.
We'll take this in small chunks. En arche. En arche. In beginning. Again, there's no definite article. But remember, they're transliterating the Hebrew. In the Hebrew, there was no Nikud pointer system at the time, so they had to guess. And they also went with no definite article. Okay? Next, epoiese. Epoiese. Right? Epoiese. This is an indicative aorist active third person singular form of the verb poieo. Poieo. Meaning do or make or produce or manufacture or cause or establish. If you look later on, you can see, you forget any of this, like indicative aorist, blah blah blah. You can get it from the notes that I posted. Notice though, the special creative sense inherent in the Hebrew word bara has been lost in the translation. In any case, this form, in this form, it means he made rather than he created from nothing. Do you see the difference? Hatheos, the theos, or the God. Like Elohim, this is a very generic word for a deity, but it's in the singular form, just like its verb is in the singular form above. The uni-plural mystery is lost in the translation. You see? Tan uranan. Say with me, tan uranan. The sky, the heaven, or the sky. It's in the accusative form, and that lets us know that it's a direct object. It's the thing being created. Notice that this word is in the singular form. The sky, the heaven. Unlike the Hebrew word shamayim, which has no singular form. Again, there's a sense that something has been lost. An understanding of the heavens, of the skies, has been lost in translation. Kai, tain, ye. Kai is and. Tain is another word for the. There are, I think, it's 16 different ways to say the in Greek. And gain is could be used to say earth. All right? And again, there are several meanings actually for gain, depending on the context. Right. Just like eretz. This word can mean soil, earth, ground, land, region, country, or inhabited earth. An alternative view of this verse is that it's an introductive summary for the rest of the chapter in which the creation takes place. In other words, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And without saying it, and here's how he did it. Blah, 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 that was day one. Blah, 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 that was day two. You with me? That's an alternative view that's out there. The problem with that is verse 2 starts with a vav, or a wow, because it was back in the days when it was wow, meaning and, indicating that it's a continuation of this narrative. It gives us the state of the creation in the beginning of verse 2 after it was created. It was just a massive stuff, all mixed up. Then verse 3 begins with a vav, or another wow, meaning and, indicating that it's a continuation of this narrative as well. It's like saying Bob made a boat, and it was a very basic, and on the first day he named it and took it to the river to see if it would float. And on the second day, he put cushiony seats in the boat and said that it was good. Then on the third day, he installed a navigation system in the boat and said that it was very good. You see that the conjunctions tell us that this narrative is ongoing. The story is continuing. The story is continuing. There are several times in Scripture where we see a summary introduction preceding a detailed account, but the verbiage here negates that. The verbiage here negates that. Was that understandable?
Yeah.
No?
Can we understand that verb means the creation continues and continues and continues like
Well, it means in the beginning, in other words, in the beginning, it wasn't a statement. He created everything you see in all the heavens and the earth the way it is, right? Boom, everything's done and completed in this first verse. And then the rest of it is saying, here's how he did it. No, it doesn't. It's not the way it was. In the beginning, he created time, space, and matter, and it was formless and void. So then we have another Vav telling us what he did in the first day. In order to get rid of that chaotic state of just a big blob of stuff, he started with light. Then he started creating an atmosphere and separating this eretz, some of it to form an earth, and creating an atmosphere around it. Then he started, grass and vegetation. Then he started with stars and the planets. Then the thing, it's a very logical order. You can't have man without all those other things. You can't have animals without the things that came before it. You understand?
Yes, but like daily are creating, another planet gets created. Daily. In the universe, there are planets created, other planets creating. So it's like a continuous creation of the Lord, because everything is created by Him,
Well, we can look at that later. So what you're saying, there's a sense in which there's nothing more being, when you're saying created, you're using an English understanding. There are things being formed. The planet was formed out there. And it wasn't, in English, create can mean different things. But the word that's being used for create here, you weren't late. The Hebrew word for create is from nothing. Are there planets out there being popped into existence from nothing? No. In the beginning of this first verse, God created everything, time, space, and matter, but it was just a big blob of stuff in a vast expanse. It was a question or something.
I was just going to say that I think it's really interesting. I'm not making any comments on Asian anniversary like that, but physicists with the current iteration of like Big Bang Theory and whatnot, time, space, and matter came into being, and everything was, or theoretically, started out as an amorphous blob. There was no shape, there was no form, but we did have parts. We supposedly had time, space, and matter come into existence at that point, and then it had to coalesce in order to form, nebula, stars, planets, all that jazz. I just think it's interesting that that's kind of what it's described at first.
Yeah, except how in that theory that initial tiny, it's like a 2-foot blob of stuff.
Exactly.
Where did it come from?
Exactly. Yes. The uncaused cause.
Okay. So the problem with that theory was the Vav. The power of the Vav tells us this is a narrative. It's an ongoing narrative. There are additional things going to happen. We have time, space, and matter, but now more stuff is going to happen. Creation is not done until the end of the 6th day, right? Okay. Yes. So in my studies, by the way, to my delight, I found after I had done my work, Rambam, that's Maimonides, agrees with my understanding very well. In the Chumash, it says, quoted, summarizing his views, at the very moment, I think I have a slide for this. Here we go. At the very first moment, from absolute nothingness, see, I bolded that part, from absolute nothingness, God created the heavens and the earth, i.e., the basic substance from which he then fashioned the universe as we know it. Do you see? It also says, summarizing him, the Torah relates the story of the 6 days of creation ex nihilo, out of nothing, to establish that God is the sole creator. Now, in Judaism, one of the arguments is that Elohim, talking about, it's plural because he's talking about the angelic court. The angelic, so in this verse it would be, the angelic court created the heavens and the earth. But we know bara, only God can create. And here we see Maimonides, Rambam saying God is the sole creator. He has just destroyed with me that excuse. And to refute, that was odd, and to refute the theories of those who claim that the universe is timeless, like the Greeks, or that it came into being through some massive coincidence or accident. Isn't that what people are being taught today? He had a purpose for this text. We've seen several purposes for the text. In this one verse, we can destroy, if we have the Hebrew right, many arguments. Many arguments. In fact, the Chumash, did that? Now, I promised you online a little bit of science, and this is real science to serve to bolster, and it will serve to bolster your faith in God. It concerns the law of causality. Raise your hand if you know the law of causality. Okay. Did I put it up there already? Put it up there so you can actually read it. Don't look, and tell me, what is the law of causality?
Basically, anything that is had a cause to bring it into being, and that cause had a cause, and that cause had a cause, and that cause had a cause.
But there's a little bit more. No effect can be greater than its cause. Right? So if we see well, maybe I'll read it first. The law of causality, that no effect can be greater than its cause, is basic in all scientific investigation. So therefore, a universe comprising of an array of intelligible and complex effects, including living systems and conscious personalities, is itself proof of an intelligent, complex, living, conscious person as its cause. Again, no effect can be greater than its cause. So how do you get a conscious personality? A greater conscious personality. How do you get intelligence? How do you get living systems? You see, not from non-living systems, not from an accident. How do you get complex systems from an accident? And some real science dictates that the universe cannot be an accident. Every week we come together to worship the Creator. We sing about Him, and we sing to Him. We learn about Him and about His ways. We thank Him for His mercy and His provision. We ask Him for aid and healing and protection when we need it, because we acknowledge that He is more capable of doing anything that we could imagine. We know who we worship. He is our King, and He is the ruler of the universe. And that's why our blessings start that way. If you have a need today, go to Him in prayer. He's a merciful God. He's gracious to those who are not in rebellion against Him. And He listens to their prayers. So cry out to Him as I say the blessing. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai padavelecha, vichunecha. Yisa Adonai padavelecha, vayasem lecha shalom. Adonai, Adonai Elohim, the God who created the universe. Adonai bless you and keep you, guarding you and protecting you. Adonai make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you, giving you his mercy, undeserved favor and mercy. Adonai lift up his countenance upon you. May he be with you. May his presence be with you, on you, over you, and surrounding you. Not deserting you, not abandoning you when you're in need. And give you his perfect holistic peace, his shalom. B'Shem Yeshua, in the name of the Messiah, the Son of the living God, Yeshua. Amen. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. We looked at one verse. I hope that I was able to bring some of the scripture talks about, the Psalms talk about, open my eyes. David said, open my eyes that I may see the wonders in your Torah. I hope you got some glimpse of some of the wonders of the Torah, even just from the one verse today. If you did, it's been wonderful. If you didn't, kindly let me know with your complaint. There's a complaint form in the back. No. See, we can end the. First of all, though, there's a 6 o'clock meeting later, night of prayer, where we'll pray for the city of Jacksonville and for our nation, and maybe a little bit for our world as well today. I also want to point out sources. I had more sources, some of them I wound up not really using them. So the Chumash, the Defender Study Bible, and the Genesis Record, as well as, of course, the Hebrew, the Masoretic text, and the Septuagint, and whatnot. But those are great sources when you're looking at Bereshit, when you're looking at Genesis. Okay, we can end that. I hope.
All right.
Did you see anything that you didn't really know before revealed